Classifying repair work, according to FHWA and ERPA. Welcome to the video on classifying repair work according to the FHWA's ERPA agreement with MnDOT. You should have watched the first part of this video series through debris eligibility before accessing this one. When you and your organization apply for emergency relief funding after a disaster, it's important that everyone understands what the differences between emergency restoration and permanent repairs are and which federal or state agencies or programs reimburse for what. As ERPA states, because both emergency restoration and permanent repairs will likely be performed on the same project, it is especially important to keep track of the work that is emergency restoration and that which is permanent repair. Hopefully, this video will help you and your organization navigate these sometimes murky waters as you restore and repair roadways to pre-disaster conditions. Introduction. This video names and defines 3 types of site damage for FHWA emergency relief reimbursable projects and gives examples of them. It also shares kinds of work that are not eligible for reimbursement. First, let's talk about the 3 classifications of site damage. Classifying site damage. There are 3 ways that FHWA classifies site damage as emergency restoration, permanent repairs, concurrent with emergency restoration, or permanent repairs. First, let's get into emergency restorations. Emergency restoration. When disasters impact a roadway, everyone would agree that the best thing to do is to get it back open to normal traffic. However, this mindset isn't conducive to being reimbursed with federal funds. Remember, FHWA reimburses emergency restoration 100%. The intent of FHWA emergency restoration is to restore essential traffic to the roadway until permanent repair can be completed in accordance with all federal regulations and procedures. To FHWA, emergency restoration is work that minimizes damage already caused, protects facilities, prevents further damage to the roadway, or restores essential traffic. FHWA dictates that emergency restoration work must be accomplished within 180 days after the event date. Up next are examples of emergency restoration work. Examples of emergency restoration work. According to FHWA, these are some examples of emergency restoration work. Filling in holes or depressions in the travelway. Temporary measures to protect roadways, embankments, or slopes. Inspector monitoring of damage to monitor safety of a structure or roadway or decide whether to close or open the road. Roadway closure and detour expenses after initial damage has occurred. Continuing maintenance, regrading and shaping, of a temporary roadway surface to keep it open until permanent repairs can be completed. Furnishing and installing temporary culverts and bridges prior to completion of a permanent restoration. Temporary traffic control such as temporary signals, flaggers, pilot cars, or temporary barriers. Temporary striping and pavement markings to assist interim traffic flow. Dewatering to accomplish temporary repairs with an existing ROW. Measures to minimize ongoing or further damage which has already occurred and prevent additional damage to the roadway or its associated structures. Next, let's get into permanent repair that's done at the same time as emergency restoration. Permanent repairs concurrent with emergency restoration. Permanent repairs may be done concurrently with emergency restorations if the total damage cost is less than $150,000. The roadway owner justifies in writing that it is in the public interest to do emergency and permanent work at the same time. All proposed repair work is within the existing right-of-way. The proposed work restores the site to pre-event condition with no improvements, additions, or widening. The work is completed within 180 days of the event date. Environmental clearances that must be obtained prior to starting permanent repair include Section 106, Section 7, Endangered Species Act, and any necessary consultation and clearances with Army Corps of Engineers. Your organization's National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, documentation is completed and submitted to FHWA for authorization of permanent repair costs concurrent with emergency restoration. Up next is a discussion on permanent repairs with examples to follow. Those examples also apply to permanent repairs performed concurrently with emergency restoration. Permanent repairs. Permanent repair work is any work beyond emergency restoration. This includes work to restore the roadway to normal traffic and anything beyond emergency restoration that stays in place when the project is complete. It can be performed concurrently with emergency work, contracted separately, or completed more than 180 days after the event date. NEPA clearance is required for all permanent repair work. Reimbursement for permanent repairs is based on the type of federal aid highway that is being repaired, which will be covered later. Next, we'll review examples of permanent repair work. Examples of permanent repair work. Permanent repair work includes any and all of these. When an expert, in other words, a professional engineer, needs to do design work or investigational studies to determine the best fix, also known as preliminary engineering. When geometric revisions are being made to the roadway, also known as construction engineering, these can mean changes in the bridge inspection, site monitoring, or construction oversight. Construction of permanent structures like retaining walls, culverts, bridges, etc. Shoulder repair. Ditch stabilization work. Replacement of items outside the travelway, guardrail, signs, fencing, etc. Completing a paving section to current standards. Soil nailing. Repairs that require acquisition of the permanent right-of-way. Final striping and pavement markings. Final turf establishment. Some permanent repair work can be done at the same time as emergency restoration, but there are specific requirements that must be met. Next, let's talk about the types of work that are ineligible for FHWA reimbursement. Work ineligible for FHWA reimbursement. According to MnDOT and FHWA's Emergency Relief Programmatic Agreement, these kinds of work are ineligible for emergency relief reimbursement. Measures to prevent damage before the event occurs. Heavy maintenance or pre-existing conditions. Work reimbursed by FEMA. Sites with less than total estimated costs of $5,000. Damage to sites at which projects have already been programmed into the State Transportation Improvement Program, or STIP. That is what you need to know in order to classify site damage. Summary. This video named and defined 3 types of site damage for FHWA emergency relief reimbursable projects and gave examples of them. It also shared kinds of work that are not eligible for reimbursement. The next video in the series covers NEPA requirements in more depth. This video is now complete. Thank you for watching.